The vision of God. All Muslims profess to believe that the vision of God is the summit of human felicity, because it is so stated in the law, but with many this is a mere lip profession which arouses no emotion in their hearts. This is quite natural, for how can a man long for a thing of which he has no knowledge? We will endeavor to show briefly why the vision of God is the greatest happiness to which a man can attain. In the first place, every one of man's faculties has its appropriate function which it delights to fulfill. This holds good of them all, from the lowest bodily appetite to the highest form of intellectual apprehension. But even a comparatively low form of mental exertion affords greater pleasure than the satisfaction of bodily appetites. Thus, if a man happens to be absorbed in a game of chess, he will not come to his meal, though repeatedly summoned. And the higher the subject matter of our knowledge, the greater is our delight in it. For instance, we would take more pleasure in knowing the secrets of a king than the secrets of a vizier. Seeing, then, that God is the highest possible object of knowledge, the knowledge of him must afford more delight than any other. He who knows God, even in this world, dwells, as it were, in a paradise, the breadth of which is as the breadth of the heavens and the earth, a paradise the fruits of which no envy can prevent him plucking, and the extent of which is not narrowed by the multitude of those who occupy it. But the delight of knowledge still falls short of the delight of vision, just as our pleasure in thinking of those we love is much less than the pleasure afforded by the actual sight of them. Our imprisonment in bodies of clay and water, and entanglement in the things of sense constitute a veil which hides the vision of God from us, although it does not prevent our attaining to some knowledge of him. For this reason God said to Moses on Mount Sinai, "Thou shalt not see me." The truth of the matter is this, that, just as the seed of man becomes a man, and a buried date stone becomes a palm tree, so the knowledge of God acquired on earth will in the next world change into the vision of God. And he who has never learnt the knowledge will never have the vision. This vision will not be shared alike by all who know, but their discernment of it will vary exactly as their knowledge. God is one, but he will be seen in many different ways, just as one object is reflected in different ways by different mirrors, some showing it straight, and some distorted, some clearly and some dimly. A mirror may be so crooked as to make even a beautiful form appear misshapen, and a man may carry into the next world a heart so dark and distorted that the sight which will be a source of peace and joy to others will be to him a source of misery. He, in whose heart the love of God has prevailed over all else, will derive more joy from this vision than he in whose heart it has not so prevailed, just as in the case of two men with equally powerful eyesight, gazing on a beautiful face. He who already loves the possessor of that face will rejoice in beholding it more than he who does not. For perfect happiness mere knowledge is not enough, unaccompanied by love, and the love of God cannot take possession of a man's heart till it be purified from love of the world, which purification can only be effected by abstinence and austerity. While he is in this world, a man's condition with regard to the vision of God is like that of a lover who should see his beloved's face in the twilight, while his clothes are infested with hornets and scorpions, which continually torment him. But should the sun arise and reveal his beloved's face in all its beauty, and the noxious vermin leave off molesting him, then the lover's joy will be like that of God's servant, who, released from the twilight and the tormenting trials of this world, beholds him without a veil. Yahya Ibn Muaz relates, I watched Bayezid Bastami at prayer through one entire night. When Bad finished, he stood up and said, O Lord, some of thy servants have asked and obtained of thee the power to perform miracles, to walk on the sea, and to fly in the air, but this I do not ask. Some have asked and obtained treasures, but these I do not ask. Then he turned and, seeing me, said, Are you there, Yahya? I replied, Yes. He asked, Since when? I answered, For a long time. I then asked him to reveal to me some of his spiritual experiences. I will reveal, he answered, what is lawful to tell you. The Almighty showed me his kingdom from its loftiest to its lowest. He raised me above the throne and the seat and all the seven heavens. Then he said, "Ask of me whatsoever thing thou desirest." I answered, "Lord, I wish for nothing beside thee." "Verily," he said, "thou art my servant." On another occasion Bayezid said, "Were God to offer thee the intimacy with himself of Abraham, the power and prayer of Moses, the spirituality of Jesus, yet keep thy face directed to him only, for he has treasures surpassing even these." One day a friend said to him, "For 30 years I have fasted by day and prayed by night, and have found none of that spiritual joy of which thou speakest." Bayezid answered, "If you fasted and prayed for 300 years, you would never find it." "How's that?" asked the other. "Because," said Bayezid, "your selfishness is acting as a veil between you and God." "Tell me, then, the cure." "It is a cure which you cannot carry out." However, as his friend pressed him to reveal it, Bayezid said, "Go to the nearest barber and have your beard shaved. Strip yourself of your clothes, with the exception of a girdle round your loins. Take a horse's nosebag full of walnuts, hang it round your neck, go into the bazaar and cry out, 'Any boy who gives me a slap on the nape of my neck shall have a walnut.' Then, in this manner, go where the Qadi and the doctors of the law are sitting." "Bless my soul," said his friend, "I really can't do that. Do suggest some other remedy." "This is the indispensable preliminary to a cure," answered Bayezid. "But, as I told you, you are incurable." The reason Bayezid indicated this method of cure for one of relish and devotion was that his friend was an ambitious seeker after place and honor. Ambition and pride are diseases which can only be cured in some such way. God said unto Jesus, "O Jesus, when I see in my servants' hearts pure love for myself unmixed with any selfish desire concerning this world or the next, I act as guardian over that love." Again, when people asked Jesus, "What is the highest work of all?" he answered, "To love God and to be resigned to his will." The Saint Rabia was once asked whether she loved the prophet. "The love of the Creator," she said, "has prevented my loving the creature." Ibrahim bin Adam, in his prayers, said, "O God, in my eyes heaven itself is less than a gnat in comparison with the love of thee, and the joy of thy remembrance which thou hast granted me." He who supposes that it is possible to enjoy the love of God is far gone in error, for the very essence of the future life is to arrive at God as at an object of desire long aimed at and attained through countless obstacles. This enjoyment of God is happiness. But if he had no delight in God before, he will not delight in him then. And if his joy in God was but slight before, it will be but slight then. In brief, our future happiness will be in strict proportion to the degree in which we have loved God here. But, and may God preserve us from such a doom, if in a man's heart there has been growing up a love of what is opposed to God, the conditions of the next life will be altogether alien to him, and that which will cause joy to others will to him cause misery. This may be illustrated by the following anecdote. A certain scavenger went into the perfume seller's bazaar, and, smelling the sweet scents, fell down unconscious. People came round him and sprinkled rose water upon him, and held musk to his nose, but he only became worse. At last one came who had been a scavenger himself. He held a little filth under the man's nose, and he revived instantly, exclaiming, with a sigh of satisfaction, "Ah, this is perfume indeed." Thus in the next life a worldling will no longer find the filthy lucre and the filthy pleasures of the world. The spiritual joys of that world will be altogether alien to him, and but increase his wretchedness. For the next world is a world of spirit and of the manifestation of the beauty of God. Happy is that man who has aimed at and acquired affinity with it. All austerities, devotions, studies have the acquirement of that affinity for their aim, and that affinity is love. This is the meaning of that saying of the Quran, "He who has purified his soul is happy." Sins and lusts directly oppose the attainment of this affinity. Therefore the Quran goes on to say, "And he who has corrupted his soul is miserable." Those who are gifted with spiritual insight have really grasped this truth as a fact of experience and not a merely traditional maxim. Their clear perception of it leads them to the conviction that he by whom it was spoken was a prophet indeed. just as a man who has studied medicine knows when he is listening to a physician. This is a kind of certainty which requires no support from miracles such as the conversion of a rod into a snake, the credit of which may be shaken by apparently equally extraordinary miracles performed by magicians.